In today's video, we're going to be looking at the Quantum Valkyrie Expert Advisor by Mr. Bogdan. So every time Bogdan releases a new bot, there's usually a lot of interest in it because he's one of the top developers in the MQL5 marketplace. And we can do some simple math here that in the past month, 425 people have purchased this bot at a price of around $900. That's over 300 grand in sales just in one bot. So this is like absolutely astronomical. The amount of money that these guys are making off of bots is amazing. And effectively, I'd be really curious to dive in now to see, is this thing any good, or is it just another kind of sketchy MQL5 bot? So first of all, Bogdan has put out a ton of bots over the years. They're all kind of part of this quantum series, and almost all of them tend to be grid martingales. And if you guys are new to this space, a grid martingale is usually a bot which it averages into losers. So let's say it enters an initial buy position, and instead of the price of whatever asset going up, it goes down. The bot will then increasingly add to the position, will buy again and again and again at different levels with an increasing lot size, so that theoretically the last trade winning should cover the losses of all the precedent trades. And this is seen as a martingale style strategy. The issue with this is they tend to go boom eventually, just because all you need is one bad run of losers where you're unable to actually have a single winner before you run out of margin for the entire bot to blow. However, the thing about Bogdan is that he's quite good at making this style of bot. So a lot of developers who don't know what they're doing will make grid bots or martingale bots that blow up extremely quickly. Bogdan's bots blow up occasionally, but relatively infrequently, because he does kind of know what he knows what he's doing when it comes to this style of system. So this one is kind of new, and it claims to not be a grid bot. So curious to see what exactly it's doing. And this one here, it trades gold on the M15. Some of the actual kind of sales page language is pretty fluffy here. So like tested across volatile sessions, stress validated during unpredictable gold movements. All of this is just like basic kind of jargon, which is likely written by ChatGPT. So not a ton of information there. Here he's saying that each trade has its own fixed stop loss and take profit. And risk is calculated in advance and remains transparent. So this would all indicate it's not a grid bot. So just a simple gold-based system. I would venture that it's probably based on breakouts, just because most gold bots are. It tends to work fairly well. And here he says that it's built for traders who want more control. They want to know what their exposure is before entering a trade, and pretty much people who don't generally like grid bots. So it looks like a real strategy, honestly. I think it's more of a breakout system. And from what I can see from the signals, there is a recovery mechanism, but it's not like a multi-level grid. What I mean by that is here, after every loss, the next trade, they double the lot size. And what that means is, not always, but theoretically, they should be able to cover the losers with a larger win as the next trade. He has been playing with the balances here, so that's why I think it's not a perfect recovery. But pretty much, like here we can see as well, right? Like he took one loser, and then I don't know if it was exactly the next trade, but I guess pretty close to that, he doubled the lot size. And same thing here. I guess this is the start of the signal, so it's not indicative. We can see like after every loser, there's a doubling of the lot size. So there is a recovery mechanism. What that means is like because most likely the thing has an inverted risk reward, let's look at that here. Yeah, average profit, average loss. Yeah, there we go. Because it has an inverted risk reward, to keep your equity curve as stable as possible, after taking one loss, which is going to be roughly double one win, you would just double the lot size in the next trade, because this thing probably has a very high win rate. There we go, 90% win rate. So this should result in a pretty smooth equity curve. Okay, so this is a classic style of recovery. If you have a super high win rate bot, with an inverted risk reward, what you can do is that because it's so unlikely, or it's statistically unlikely to have two losers in a row, you can double the lot size after a loser, and that, generally speaking, causes your backtest equity curve to be pretty smooth. If anybody knows Gregory Hay, he makes a ton of bots like this. So like Gold Energy, there's one with the Lion, Gold Extreme, they all do this. You got to be really careful with this. I've done it in the past, and it looks great in back testing. You think like, oh my God, this is amazing. If I have a 90% win rate, I should be able to just double my lot size after a loser, and we'll all be hunky-dory. We'll have a nice smooth equity curve. It's great in theory. However, if a market regime shifts, all of a sudden your mix of winners and losers can change, and you can be really kicked heavily because all of a sudden you can have two double losers in a row, and all of a sudden your 1% becomes 2%, and you do that twice. So it sounds really smart in theory. However, as somebody who's done this, it can be a pretty nasty surprise in case you have a shift in the order of winners and losers. So if you were to Monte Carlo something like this, it's not going to look good. I did this once with US 30. I developed a system where it's like, we didn't even massively scale the lot size, similar to what he's doing here, where you just double it after a loser. And this was based on an opening range breakout because we had forward tested this bot for several months, and we had 3 months where it never took 2 losers in a row. So it was like, great, this should theoretically work. However, then Donald Trump got elected, and all of a sudden, the US 30 opening range breakout totally broke down for a couple months because the brokers massively jacked up the spreads. And this caused this system to not necessarily work. So one thing to note is with this strategy, it is certainly valid, you just have to be careful. So I venture most likely folks will be pretty happy with it for a good amount of time. Also, your risk should be relatively reasonable too, because if you're only doing one recovery trade, let's say you risk 0.5% per trade and you double the lot size in the next one, that's still 1%. What might hurt people here is if you get some cowboys risking 5% per trade and you have a recovery trade and you risk 10%, that's not going to be great. So yeah, certainly very valid. So it's actually one of his better bots that I've seen so far. It looks to be from the actual trading strategy. I ran it on the M15, however, I wanted to just zoom out here on the H1 to see in more detail. And it looks like a classic breakout system on gold. So we can see here at other levels, it's shorting, it's going long, it's bidirectional, which is a really great sign. And here we turned, in the span of 1 year, 10 grand into around 24 grand. So good bot, but it's a real equity curve. This is a classic, like more recovery style equity curve. Looks good. Is looking really good here as well too, because gold has been in a very positive regime. Inverted risk reward, high win rate. So yeah, this looks like a real strategy. Like of Bogdan's bots, this is probably one of his safer ones. So he knows what he's doing. I have no doubt that he's put a lot of thought into this. It's still a higher risk strategy, but it's definitely a real system. So breakout, initial trade is based on the breakout on gold, bidirectional, and he's using a recovery mechanism. Let's do a quick test here to see if we actually turn the recovery mechanism off. What does it look like? So I venture strong signal multiplier probably means recovery multiplier, and he's being a little bit, he's hiding kind of what it actually means because some people get scared. So let's just wait and see for a few seconds what it looks like if we set that to 0. I venture it's still going to be profitable because if you run a breakout system on gold, especially in the past year, it would have been crazy profitable. So we're going ahead. So far it looks pretty good. You guys can just see it's not as smooth, right? So you're going to have, like, because it has such an inverted risk reward, if you have a loser, it's going to be quite a bit bigger than the winner. But it looks not totally similar, but there's a lot of similarities to it. Yeah, so not quite as smooth. Profits are not as massive. Let's just check now to see if he's not scaling. Let's look for a loser, 0.19, 0.19, perfect. 0.2, 0.2. So yeah, you actually can turn it off. So here's the exact same equity curve with the recovery multiplier turned off, and it's still very profitable. So this is just a one trade system. So this is a very much real strategy. So overall, what I can conclude, this is probably my favorite Bogdan bot I've ever seen. Keep in mind, everything on gold will look enormously amazing when back tested over the past few years. However, this is certainly a real strategy. It's actually not a grid. You can turn off the recovery mechanism if so desired. I probably would if I was running it myself, just because I don't like recovery. I've been burned in the past. So it overall looks to be a real system. So guys, hope you enjoyed my video. I'll see you in the next one.